Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. I am Pat from Pat's Path Predictor, and before we get into the SBC stuff, I want to talk about some of the severe thunderstorms we saw yesterday. So, for those of you who do not know, the area around Springfield, Missouri, especially in the earlier in the afternoon, they got a lot of severe thunderstorms. Some hail sizes were like up to 3 inches according to radar, and I made a video talking about it and telling them that they need that's to seek shelter and all that. So, and I also put up a community post once a tornado warning went up, saying that you need to seek shelter immediately. So, yeah, that's what happened. Also, areas around Dodge City, Kansas, also got some pretty bad severe thunderstorms. We got some radar indicated hail of up to 4 inches of hail, which that's almost softball size right there. Either that is softball size or it's almost softball size, but that doesn't really matter. And that's the kind of stuff we saw today. Yesterday. But yeah, this is what we're going to be going over the SBCs and stuff we're going to be seeing today and tomorrow, and if we have time, day 3. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right into the video. All right, so this is the situation we're dealing with right here. So basically, what we have is an enhanced risk from Nebraska down to Texas. So yeah, includes cities of Amarillo, Liberal, Garden City, Colby, and McCook, Nebraska. So yeah, that's that area. It effectively affects 708,000 people. The slight risk affects 1.8 million, and it encompasses from North Dakota all the way down to Texas. Classically Tornado Alley right there. And marginal encompasses and affects 13 million people from the U.S.-Mexican border all the way close to the U.S.-Canadian border in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So thought I'd keep an eye out on that for there. So yeah, basically, let's go over some of the risks we saw. Let's look at the tornado threat. The tornado threat is actually the lowest threat, although it's 5% in certain areas, including in parts of South Dakota and all the way from Nebraska down to Texas. So that means there's a 5% possibility of a tornado happening within 25 miles of a point, so please keep that in mind. The wind threat is now 30% here, but look at this hatched area right here. That means there is a 30% chance or more of 65 knots or 75 mile per hour winds within 25 miles of a point, and there's 30% right here. 15% encompasses the small amount of that area. The regular 15% goes from South Dakota down to Texas, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. The hail threat is also equally, if not as much bigger of a threat, considering what we saw yesterday with those storms in Dodge City and Springfield, Missouri. So, yeah, the Rapid City area is 15% right here with a hatched area, means there's a 15% risk of severe hail of 2 inches or more in diameter within 25 miles of a point. 30% of the same area right here. So, yeah, that's essentially the situation. So let's go ahead and dive right into the big stuff. Summary. Episodic significant severe weather is possible across portions of the central and southern high plains beginning late this afternoon and continuing into tonight. Very large hail and damaging straight-line winds, in addition to a few tornadoes, are anticipated. Let's go ahead and read some of this. This is the southern to central high plains right here. They don't have the synopsis part of it, so they're just diving right into this. A robust cyclogenesis occurs from the Denver metro area to the Nebraska panhandle this afternoon into early evening. Mid-level height falls will overspread with arching dryland from central Nebraska to the Texas South Plains. Initially, high-base convective development is most likely across the western panhandles into western Kansas, with a plume of mid-50s to low 60s surface dew points expected to be maintained. Okay, they actually updated it. It looks like there's no real change right here, but alright, okay, they just changed it a little bit. So basically, I'll just go over this real quickly. They changed it, and here we go. Early morning, which is 12Z, which is about 7 o'clock Central Time. Upper air analysis features relatively rich mid to late April moisture across the region with 12 plus degrees Celsius, 850 millibar dew points across western Kansas and all of western Texas, with moist axis roughly centered around the 101 west longitude. Alright, early morning visible satellite tends to already depict a relatively quick erosion, of the southern high plains stratus field, particularly in its western edge near New Mexico and Texas border vicinity. This moisture is beneath the stout and elevated mixed layer and generally coincides with the early day mid-level warm axis with 700 millibars temps at 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, for those of you who do not know, that's about 50 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit, so please keep that in mind. Ahead of the upper trough polar jet spreading across from the southwest desert towards the Four Corners area, robust surface cyclogenesis will occur today across the northeastern Colorado towards the western Nebraska. By evening, as mid-level height falls occur and mixing and confluence and convergence increases near the dry line, the current thinking is that at least widely scattered storms will begin to develop by around mid-afternoon, with a north to south corridor spanning across the far west Texas to near just west of the New Mexico Texas into southeastern and east central Colorado. Although some warm sector mixing and lowering of dew points can be expected to mid-50s to low 60s Fahrenheit, surface dew points are expected to be generally persist east of the dry line, supporting a likely intensification of thunderstorms as the thunderstorms progress eastward. 35 to 40 knots of effective shear will support initial high-base supercells capable of very large hail. Deep layer low-level shear will tend to increase through early to mid-evening, with storms storms also occur, increased moisture content and less mixing. This should result in an increased potential for tornadoes by early evening, with strong convective wind gusts that are also plausible. A later round of separate convective development, which in English we're looking at two rounds of severe thunderstorms in some areas. So that's just what convective development means. That's what it means in English. So yeah. It's likely by late evening as the Pacific cold front moves eastward and impinges on the western extent of the buoyancy plume near the Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas border area. This should result in a north-south oriented convective line quickly spreading into the western portions of Nebraska and Kansas, while also expanding southward regionally overnight. Very strong wind profile should promote a threat for severe wind and some hail, although the duration for a spite extent overnight will probably be limited by pervasive cold air and theta eve advection in the warm sector, which will reduce the available cape with time. So this is into Wyoming and Nebraska right here. A tight baroclinic zone will lie to the north of the slow-moving warm front's quasi-stationary frontal zone extending from the deepening central high plains cyclone. A narrow bent-back plume of 50 degrees Fahrenheit surface dew point should be maintained beneath an initially stout elevated mixed layer. It seems likely that a few surface-based storms may ride along the boundaries within an SRH-enriched environment near the South Dakota-Nebraska border area, while the additional storms are possible further to the west-northwest. Hydrographs will be highly elongitated, yielding in the potential for a longer-lived supercell or two, while the main threat being significant large hail, although a couple of tornadoes could also occur. So, in parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, we could see the biggest threat is hail. You can see it right here. There isn't much change right here, but you can see that hatched area right there in the 15%, and that's been highlighted. That's highlighted there for a reason, because there's an increased risk of 2-inch hail. But nevertheless, let's continue. Pending some additional destabilization in the Midwest near a warm front, isolated strong to severe storms could occur today near the east of a MCV currently across eastern Iowa. Otherwise, additional potentially severe development, mostly hail, is possible later tonight across a broader part of the Midwest in association with a low-level steepening mid-level lapse rates. Okay, I just missed the line, so please excuse me for that. in upper Midwest in association of a low-level warm theta E advection regime. This potential will be supported by steepening mid-level lapse rates attended to expanding the Great Plains elevated mixed layer and adequate shear within the cloud-bearing layer. So we could see a risk for hail in parts of Iowa and Minnesota right here. That's essentially all that's saying right there. But yeah, that's basically the severe threat for today. Now let's go ahead and go over quickly the severe threats for tomorrow. We're going to go over the risks and some of the synopsis so I don't drag this video out for too long. Here's the slight risk. It goes all the way from Texas all the way up to Minnesota, including Minneapolis, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, Wichita, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Norman, Fort Sill, and very close to Wichita Falls, Texas. The population area this is going to affect is over 14 million people. So everyone in this area needs to take it kind of seriously, because this is an upped risk. So please keep that in mind. The tornado risk, it's 5% in two concentrated areas. First one is in central Minnesota. The second one is in Kansas and Oklahoma right here. The wind threat is basically the most widespread threat right here. Essentially from Minnesota down to Texas. Same area as the slight risk. The hail threat is a bit more narrow than the wind threat. So the wind threat's probably going to be the biggest threat. The hail threat right here, it goes from the same area, except it is, as you can see, it doesn't encompass parts of Minneapolis, Des Moines, that area right there. So that is somewhat good news compared to the wind threat. So let's go over the summary. There's a slight risk of severe thunderstorms across much of Minnesota, far western Wisconsin, Iowa, far southeast Nebraska, northwest Missouri, and eastern Kansas and central Oklahoma. Summary. Severe thunderstorms are possible Saturday through Saturday night in a corridor for parts of the upper Midwest into the southern Great Plains. This may include a risk for tornadoes, strong wind gusts, and hail. We're not going to go over the synopsis, like this area right here, because that's all technical weather stuff. And like I said, I don't want to drag this video out for too long, so we're going to skip this and go to the more localized areas. Missouri Valley into the upper Midwest. Strong ascent will overspread the region by late morning, early afternoon. Strong to severe thunderstorms are expected to develop in the vicinity of the surface low triple point from the far eastern Dakotas into Minnesota by midday, and eventually further south along the eastward advancing cold front into Iowa through the afternoon. Strong effective shear will be in place across the region, adding in organized storms. Instability will remain modest, around 500 to 1,000 joules a kilogram per cape. I looked at the cape values just recently for today. Cape values are cracking 3,000 easily in some areas, so just wanted to let you guys know that. But for tomorrow, it's going to be around 500 to 1,000 in this area and into the Missouri Valley. In large, low-level hydrographs becoming elongated above 3 kilometers may initially support semi-discrete supercells capable of all severe hazards. However, linear forcing mechanisms and fast storm motion motion towards the north-northeast, resulting in storm interactions, will likely lead to development of line segments. If discrete cells develop, all severe hazards will be possible, but an increase in damaging wind and mesovortex tornadoes will ensue as linear storm mode becomes more dominant. Convection will spread east to northeast through the evening and become encountering increasingly inhibition and poorer moisture and instability eastward of the extent of the Mississippi River. The Kansas and Oklahoma vicinity, uncertainty remains on a somewhat higher and southward extent, as stronger ascent will be focused to the north, and at least a weak capping between 850 and 700 millibars will exist. This mid-level warm layer may suppress discrete convection through peak heating. Nevertheless, a somewhat better boundary layer moisture and lapse rates will exist across the region, resulting in 1,500 to 2,000 joules a kilogram of cape amid 45 plus knot effective shear magnitudes. Those two right there already tell we could see a potentially conducive environment right there. So everyone needs to pay attention to that for tomorrow. I will keep updating you guys as the situation develops with that. Becoming large, favorably curved low-level hydrographs becoming elongated in the Midwest will be present, supporting rotating storms as the cold front surges southeast and a southwesterly low-level jet increases. Any lingering inhibition should be overcome and isolated to scattered thunderstorms are expected by evening. If storms can develop along the dry line during the late afternoon before the cold surges southeast, supercells capable of all severe hazards will be possible for parts of the southwest into north-central Oklahoma and eastern Kansas. However, this threat remains conditional, and that convection will wait to develop until the cold front overtakes the dry line during the evening. Convection should quickly become linear in this scenario, with damaging gusts and mesovortex tornadoes possible. Central to southwest Texas vicinity, a conditional threat for isolated, elevated, and/or high-based, depending on time, supercells will exist during the evening and overnight along the dry line. If storms develop, effective shear magnitudes along 45 knots and vertically veering wind profiles will support supercells amid 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. Isolated strong gusts and hail will be possible with any cells that develop near the dry line. So that's essentially the risks that we're seeing right here. We could be seeing some supercells in areas like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. That depends on how fast the cold front goes through. But with that being said, that's essentially the risks that we're seeing for tomorrow. And that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps you out and helps you make more videos like these. It also helps inform more of the public. The goal is to get them more engaged with weather and to get them better prepared. With that being said, guys, have a wonderful day. Stay safe.